Thanks, Commissioner Ogwin, and thanks, Danielle, for the opportunity to share today. Like many of you, I'm sure you've been introduced to the finer points of homeschooling the last few months. And I, for one, have come to realize that grades aren't really telling me what I need to know. So I'm really becoming appreciative of the interactive platform that our high school has for looking at grades, because it helps me stay connected to what I really care about, which is that my daughter has been finishing her homework, that she's been understanding the material, and that she's making progress towards the grades that she'll be getting. You know, she's the one that's responsible to deliver, of course, but with this interactive platform, I can still keep an eye on it and understand how the grades are likely to progress and target interventions if I need it without major blow-ups at the end. You know, as regulators, I'm pretty sure you would appreciate that, you know, maybe 80% of the job in parenting and utility regulation probably comes back to knowing that you are watching, right? And it strikes me that this experience that I've had with report cards is kind of similar to where we're at in regulating energy efficiency these days. Right now, most of you probably find out about how programs did at the end of a program cycle, or maybe even a couple years after the cycle. And it comes so late that there isn't really much you can do, or the utilities can do about it, except bicker a little, or if you're in California, bicker a lot, and then pick up the pieces and try again. And what I'm seeing is that change can really come about when you implement some of the key components that surround meter-based efficiency. Those are adopting standard weights and measures, which allows you to consistently track meter-based impacts, creating performance accountability to align the incentives, and adopting frameworks for competitive procurement that bring in greater investment. So just like that report card platform with my daughter, meter-based efficiency as a concept and all the tools that go around it help you concentrate on the things that matter most. And the things that matter most are really changing in our systems today. You are adapting to this reality, as well as all the other vendors, with a wide range of energy resources available and a myriad of business models that are willing and able to deliver. You're devising regulations and policies to match the challenges and also open the opportunities, and it's messy. And Recurve's platform, therefore, is kind of like my daughter's report card platform. It helps clean out some of that messiness and helps connect and organize the myriad of actors to data that provides a common understanding of performance and thereby facilitates transactions in the market. And it all kind of starts with the concept of standard weights and measures for quantifying impacts at the meter. Because consistency and transparency is a key value proposition for meter-based efficiency. We all know that old adage, a penny saved is a penny earned, right? Well, it's a common unit that we all understand. But would you say the same for a kilowatt hour? Do you have trust that a kilowatt hour saved or shifted or shaped is equal to a kilowatt hour generated? My guess is probably no. This is how we tend to define a kilowatt hour saved. It's a pile of reports from evaluations that are conducted years after the programs are implemented. Or perhaps this is what your technical reference manual looks like. It's a long list of technologies with their backed up engineering calculations that can deliver savings today. But in either case, this is the equivalent of that flat report card result that I was talking about. When this is your primary means of feedback, it reinforces the compliance nature of energy efficiency programs in the regulatory space, as opposed to optimizing them to deliver as a resource. And I've observed that folks don't settle for that with other distributed resources, and I don't think you have to settle for that with energy efficiency either, especially when you've invested in infrastructure to provide hourly information about what is happening at the meter. In order to optimize energy efficiency resources in relation to grid operations and bridge with customer needs, you really do need to have a consistent, transparent means of tracking the impacts at the meter. And that's why Caltrac and the OpenEE meter were created. Caltrac provides a standardized, detailed method for calculating changes in consumption due to interventions that happen behind the meter. They're built on industry best practice. It's a pre-post regression analysis that's normalized by weather and occupancy. It's empirically tested and it's peer-reviewed. The hourly methods, for example, are an adaptation of the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab time of week and temperature model. And then the methods are operationalized in the OpenEE meter, which is an open source code base that allows for transparent, repeatable calculations at scale. And since it's open source, it's available without restriction. And these projects are maintained through a collaborative community of market actors, from implementers to analysts to utilities and software vendors, via the Linux Foundation's focused effort on energy called LFE. And what the Recurve business model does is it offers a software platform that provides a scaled execution of the Caltrac and OpenEE meter revenue grade calculations, and augments that with a fully auditable record of each transaction and the impacts for every site in the portfolio and also in aggregate, which in turn allows our clients, who are program administrators, implementers, and regulators, to forecast and track the performance of these resources in relation to the grid. So adopting a standard weights and measures framework for meter-based quantification across distributed energy resources, I think, is a must-have, and it's a key to scaling efficiency specifically for the future. But to get there, you have to start where you're at, right? So using meter data to review past performance is that first tier, bottom of the stack, no regrets step that you can take. Understanding past performance at the meter helps to identify opportunities to improve programs. Easy as that. Moving up from that, tracking the meter-based impacts as part of the program deployment offers actionable intelligence to optimize programs as you go. And it also gets folks ready for the next step, which is to implement pay-for-performance style programs with a better understanding of how it might work and where the value lies. And that also really helps align incentives. And from there, market actors can really be ready for a full-scale competitive procurement model to finance and rely on energy efficiency, more like we do with power purchase agreements. So back to the first point on the ramp, if you were to do nothing more than review past programs on a metered basis, you could significantly improve your cost effectiveness without even changing program designs, just targeting the right customers that would benefit from programs in the next time around. And when you go up one tick on that path and start tracking the meter-based impacts as you go, you enable aggregators and administrators to manage risk across the population and optimize the interventions within the population to deliver the best outcomes that are possible, be that on a cost effectiveness basis or other valuation framework. So as a regulator, when you can use these tools to track the whole portfolio, it neatly synergizes with your obligations to optimize ratepayer investments and offering a clear understanding of how these investments in efficiency are affecting the system. So in progressing beyond these two no-regret steps, California provides one example of taking meter-based efficiency to the next level. Normalized metered energy consumption, NMEC, as we call it in California, was adopted via statute in 2015, and it sparked a significant recasting of the structure of efficiency. Yeah, we're still working through some of the details. But the key change in the legislation was focusing our goals on changes in consumption that are quantified at the meter, rather than just achieving savings incremental to code. So in response to this legislation, the Commission's regulations have included lots of things, including authorizing pilots, having specific rules for program implementation, and they also took the opportunity to link it with some of their other objectives to have greater third-party administration within the energy efficiency portfolio And since third parties was an emphasis, it gave them an opportunity to amplify some of these elements of performance accountability, which was also cited in the legislation. The CEC has also adopted concrete strategies to incorporate meter-based analysis and aggregations in their planning functions and responsibilities so both agencies can synergize around the impacts on the load forecast and make a path for doubling energy efficiency as directed in the legislation. This aggregation piece is a key part of the solution, which is why the CPUC and the CEC have put an emphasis on population NMEC. The rulebook on population NMEC sets an expectation for aggregated meter-based programs that become the preferred path given the value they bring in reducing the regulatory burden of analyzing each site M&V plan. Population NMEC in this guidance gives quite a lot of flexibility to program implementers in exchange for the consistency in the tracking and monitoring structure, back to that standard weights and measures things I was talking about. And some really interesting innovations are emerging as a result. The PUC also adopted in this ruling, or in this guidance, a threshold requirement that 50% of the payment to aggregators in a meter-based pay-for-performance program must be tied to the savings, which takes us one more tick up on that path of scale that I was talking about, which is embracing performance accountability. So the CPUC recognized this in the rulebook that performance accountability is what really aligns incentives between the actors. When you have flat incentives, you're being paid for getting the maximum installations with minimum cost. When you're paid for what you deliver at the meter, the highest reward goes to those with maximum performance, and they're motivated to do quality work to deliver on the actual results at the meter, which also creates important connections within the market, as illustrated here, to incorporate outside financing and new risk management structures that also reward innovation and help grow the pie overall, rather than fighting over limited ratepayer dollars. Performance accountability also allows regulators to focus on outcomes and not dilly-dally with every measure that could possibly be installed, which is kind of a fundamental shift in how we approach oversight, because you are paying for what you get, not just for what you plan. Paying for what you get, as opposed to paying for what you plan, looks a lot more like the arrangements we rely on for power purchase agreements, i.e. competitive procurement. So we made it to the last stop on our path to scale. When you're measuring at the meter and have performance accountability built into the system, you also open the opportunities to finance energy efficiency, at least the resource acquisition components, more like we do with traditional infrastructure. And when we use leveraged project finance, we don't have to rely quite as much on the ratepayer funded efforts to meet these really ambitious climate and system challenges. Thanks for climbing the curve of scaling efficiency with me. I think if you keep these three key policy transitions in mind, wherever you might be starting in this process, remember that adopting standard weights and measures helps you consistently track meter-based impacts. Creating performance accountability will help you align incentives, and adopting frameworks for competitive procurement will help bring in greater investments. As regulators, you play a key role in ensuring energy efficiency can bring value to the grid and to customers, and you are invaluable in keeping all of us focused on what matters most.